The home of the common Joe and the common Sally in the know, even more so than all those media talking heads. Just when you thought expansion was done, just when you thought the SEC was done, is your conference really safe? Now, from what I'm hearing, seems like Greg Sankey and some of his people have been talking about within 2 or 3 years, the SEC will indeed expand again, and this time try to get to 20, possibly even 24 teams to get to those super mega conferences that we have talked about so often. You know, you talk about something so much and you think it's never going to happen, and then one day, boom, it happens. So like the 12-team playoff. We never thought that would happen. We never thought the 14 playoff would happen. If you're an old school football fan like myself, then you know that for a long time, all we had was bowl tie-ins and mythical national champions given to us by whatever press that you recognize, whether it be the coaches poll or the AP poll. So, is your conference safe? What teams are the SEC targeting? Let's talk about it. Well, here we are again. Another episode of the OCF, that's the Outlaw College Football, also known as JPC. That's me, Jesse Paul Clark on Facebook, spelled Jesse, without the I. Also on Twitter at OCF Productions. Try to do it different every single time, man. I hope y'all appreciate the hell out of that. But anyway, seems like expansion may not be over. Of course, we know it's not. Deep inside, we all know that eventually this thing is going to, at least in my opinion, get to 20 teams per conference, especially between the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the SEC. In my opinion, those three conferences are going to be the conferences of the future. Now, the ACC may have a little bit of a say in that, but to me, the only thing the ACC is their conference with 16 teams in it, sometimes 15, according to whether Notre Dame feels froggy and feels like being a part of the conference in football, whatever year. They may have some say in it, but that grant of rights or whatever deal they're hiding behind till 2036 is the only thing that's saving their ass, to be honest with you. Because if the ACC was not under that supposed ironclad grant of rights, which it's not, by the way. A lot of people argue with me this and say that I don't know what I'm talking about, but I've heard from many reliable sources that if 8 teams were to depart that conference at one time, that grant of rights or whatever ironclad deal that they supposedly have would go away. And at that point, it would be a bid fest and a slugfest between, in my opinion, the Big Ten and the SEC as to who picks off the best fruit that the ACC has to offer. Now, if that does happen, if for some reason that does happen, and this is what a lot of the SEC people have been talking about, Greg Sankey and some of his people have been talking about, maybe somehow, someone plants a little birdie over there in the ACC and you sort of tweets to them that, hey, maybe if 8 of you do this, blah, blah, blah. No, it's illegal. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to lure teams from another conference to your conference. They're supposed to come to you first. We all know that there's ways around that. And if that is the case, that's where they'll go first. But I think there's just too much red tape and too much legalities involved for them to take a risk on that. But if it were to happen, the first team that both the Big Ten and the SEC would go after, for what I'm understanding, is North Carolina. Very good state as far as media and national attention and recruiting and just a host of stuff, a lot of great benefits to the state of North Carolina. Then after that, you have a variety of people saying that the next team in order would probably be for the SEC would probably be Clemson or Florida State. There is rumors that the Big Ten's also interested in Florida State and possibly Miami. I think Miami has the academic credentials that give the Big Ten people a tent in their pants. Boston College would more likely be a Big Ten school if they decide to go that route. Boston is a big market, but the city of Boston itself, I don't think really supports that team. Sort of like New Jersey doesn't really support Rutgers, in my opinion, nor does New York. But, so I don't know why they went and got Rutgers, but they did. So, after that, you're probably looking at Virginia Tech as well. Some people might think you might want to go after Duke as far as basketball goes if you want to sort of branch out your portfolio a little bit, because you keep getting these great college football teams in one conference. Someone's got to lose. Someone's going to be unhappy. So it might not be in your best interest as a football power to join an all football power conference if there's too many powers in that conference. Like Clemson, for example. Clemson would be better served either staying in the ACC or possibly even joining the Big Ten or maybe even the Big 12 if that grant of rights was to dissolve by some chance, which I don't think it is. Now, I know this is probably going to say a little far-reaching because of the geographical location, but as we've seen, geographical locations are no longer a priority somewhat. Now, the SEC, for the most part, has been staying in the southeast, southwest area. People will debate you on Missouri, but it's smack dab in the middle of the United States, so to me, Missouri is not a part of any really geographical region. But from what I've been hearing, the rumblings I've been hearing is that, the Big Ten went out and sort of finally won up the SEC. They went out to the West and got a big market out West. And then you're going to have the Big 12 as well, who might raid some of those Pac-12 teams eventually. And the Big 12 at that point would be nationwide, as would the Big 10. The Big 10 and the Big 12 would both be nationwide. That can't set well with Greg Sankey. So to me, I think the SEC should go after Oregon and Washington. Now, I know some of their political beliefs and whatnot don't really match up with the stuff that they do down in the South and whatnot, but I think they can move past that if they're smart. Because Oregon and Washington, if it got to a bid war, we all know that either the Big Ten or the SEC could get either one of those teams. That's still just too far reaching for the SEC, JPC. Well, because of the geographical name of the conference. You're going to have to change the geographical name of the conference. You're going to change the conference name or something. It just don't look right. You ain't got to change the name of the conference. The acronym can stay the same, and I've said this 100 times already. People have probably heard me say this. You can change the name without changing the acronym. You can change the name of the Southeastern Conference to the Sports Entertainment Conference. Because at that point, you'd be entertaining all sports, all geographical regions. So in my opinion, Greg Sankey doesn't need to continue to let the Big 10 and the Big 12 one-up him as far as nationally ranged conferences geographically. Because right now, the SEC is clamored into one. Now, there is another possibility. The SEC could just close off the borders down here in a very rich region as far as recruiting and media markets and all that stuff. What they could do is go out, and I don't know how ironclad the contract is going to be that UCF is going to sign with the Big 12, but if they were smart, they would go out and get at least one more market in the state of Florida. That's a big state for just the Florida Gators to represent you. I know the Florida Gators do not like that idea, and they haven't for some time, but they're just going to have to get over it. Just like South Carolina, if we brought Clemson in, they're just going to have to get over it. Just like Texas A&M had to move on and get over the fact that Texas and Oklahoma are coming back to the conference to emasculate their ass. I had to sneak that one in there. Just couldn't resist, man. Old Texas A&M Colt, man. I got to take my shots when I can get them. But the SEC wants to close off the borders to this region and have more of an ironclad hold on it. And then when the ACC does eventually dissolve, then you can have the conversation of North Carolina and the other teams. But for now, UCF, Central Florida's got one of the biggest enrollments, if not the biggest enrollment in America. Got a huge alumni fan base, sleeping giant in my opinion, in a very great market in Orlando. Not as close to Gainesville as Tallahassee is. So, to me, if you wanted to close off the borders a little bit in the state of Florida, I would go after Central Florida right now. And then if the SEC, or not the SEC, excuse me, if the ACC does dissolve somehow and they become available at that point, well, then you just go ahead and take the entire Florida market and have Florida State and Miami come in and then bring Clemson in as well. And who knows who would get North Carolina at that point. North Carolina may feel more inclined to stay closer to home and have more of a geographical friendly traveling type schedule for their fans, unlike Kevin Warren's dumbass in the Big Ten, who now have a hell of a journey to Los Angeles when they come in. It's going to be more of a nuisance probably for the Skittle shitters and the Bruins out there than it will be for the Big Ten, though, because there's only 2 of them, and the rest of the Big Ten's like, what, 12 teams, 14 teams? 14, I think. So it puts him at 16. But there's a lot of possibilities out there. People are like, well, if they're going to come in and raid the Big 12 again, wouldn't they take Kansas, Kansas State, maybe TCU, and Oklahoma State? Yeah, if I were to go in and raid the Big 12 other than Central Florida, I would consider one of those 4 teams. But here's the thing, and here's what I'm hearing. Texas and Oklahoma, just like USC, not so much UCLA, do not want teams from that region, any more teams from that region joining the conference. Now, of course, Texas A&M, they didn't want Texas and Oklahoma joining the conference, and it happened. So Texas and Oklahoma may have to get over it, although I doubt it. I think Texas and Oklahoma together have a bigger voice than Texas A&M and Missouri did when they joined the conference. Much bigger voice. As a matter of fact, we all know Texas and Oklahoma were the first 2 teams they wanted to invite back in 2012, which did not happen. The SEC, they need to expand geographically to me. To me, I think they need to go out and steal Oregon and Washington. Change the name of the conference to the Sports Entertainment Conference, and then that way you can raid from any geographical region at that point. And by the way, the Big 10 and Big 12, one of them need to change the name of their conference, as well as the ACC and the AAC. And y'all going to get a little more inventive and original about your acronyms and stuff for the conferences, because they confuse a lot of the average fans out there. But that's my thoughts on the SEC's possible expansion within 2 or 3 years. You guys tell me what you think about all that. Do you think some of them's just a bit too far reaching? Or do you think that the SEC needs to checkmate the supposed Big Ten checkmate and go further out west? Drop it in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. And as always, KMCA to all other teams. Oh, yeah, there's a heart down here. If you don't mind, hit that. Throw me a few dollars in the coffers. Class is now officially dismissed.